that, as your program shows, Vitaly Pisarenko will now play Schubert, arranged and Liszt as one. Vitaly. To conclude the musical part of the evening, I will welcome our next pianist. But let me tell you, when I use the word musical part of the evening, I meant there's more to come elsewhere. So don't think this is the end. This is merely the second aperitif. Well, I'll welcome Sasha Grynyuk, who is going to play Vorotko for us. let me now introduce an item that is not on your programme. As you know, we have the most distinguished patron that you can imagine, Antonio Pappano, who's been sitting next to me, who opened the proceedings this evening. I have asked him to volunteer, which is a strange phrase because he didn't know he was going to do this when he arrived. But I've asked him to volunteer to give us a general, not a detail by any means, but a general overview of Keyboard Trust and his relationship with it as our patron, and also what he's heard this evening from the hugely talented alumni of this organisation. So I'm sure you will give him your full attention. I'm sure we will be wrapped in admiration of what he's going to say, but I'm delighted to introduce him to speak to you briefly about what has happened this evening in front of us. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, what a special treat it was tonight to be here, to listen to these young pianists and the master, Leslie. My relationship with the Keyboard Charitable Trust is basically based on my love and admiration for Noretta and John, and their vision and their determination, and in the end, their love of music and love of music written for the keyboard. It's an interesting, fascinating time we're living in right now. We're mourning the death of a 96-year-old monarch, beloved monarch, but we're celebrating the young people tonight. And I think that's an important, it's the most important thing about the Keyboard Trust is this enabling young people to have the freedom to study properly, because believe me, to do some of the things you heard this evening, that's a lot of hours alone in a room. And I feel, of course, tonight like a complete pianistic imposter. But I was full of admiration with what I heard. But what's very, very interesting, did you notice the difference between each of the pianists? And of course, the choices were mainly of romantic and 20th century repertoire, but the personalities and the different ways of placing the fingers on the keys, the weight, the sound, the lightness, the shade, light and dark, the storytelling. All this is, of course, comes from, of course, a lot of study, but then an innate, the truth of what each individual person is as a human being. And of course, in very young years, I think people are not sure who they are. They have to learn who they are and become who they are. But through music, it's very interesting. Music makes you have to answer the questions more quickly. And it's a beautiful opportunity for musicians to have to deal with expression, to have to quickly develop emotional intelligence, which I think is the most important intelligence there is. And the world of, you heard so many different colors this evening, so many I would say, I come back to the word weight, so many different types of weight on the keyboard. And you know, this keyboard is here, it's the same keyboard when I started, and you heard, you know, everything from the lightest touch to the deepest sound. It's a fascinating beast, this is, and what it's capable of. And to learn all that takes a dedication, a passion, and I think very importantly, a determination to get past what are the technical difficulties in music. I mean, of course, technique is especially today, is highly prized. But of course, to say something in music, you have to go somehow beyond the physical and the known difficulties. And believe me, you heard some very difficult pieces of music. Some of them deceptively, you would think, oh yeah, oh, how nice and harmonious, but probably to get it to sound like that took a lot of work. That's and then of course you heard the last piece, which is. It is difficult. It's very difficult. It sounds very difficult, but it's. I think, to hear. I heard with joy the music that was played today, and the fact that the keyboard trust had something to do with this is all the more important. You're celebrating 30 years. You're celebrating. The release of a book, I understand, and you want to talk about that. So I think that's the most important thing right now. I'm proud to be a patron. Please support the Keyboard Trust. That's an order. And and my love to you, Noretta and John, always.
Your patronage and your patronage as well. Thank you very much. On your seat this evening when you arrived was a book called The Gift of Music. This is a product of which many people have been involved, but two in particular, two of my co-trustees, and I would like to invite them now to come and talk about its creation, its gestation, and its production. Elena and Christopher, please. Here you go.
Well, what can one say after such wisdom and inspiration? I thought it might be fitting to talk now to you about the importance of history and tradition for the Keyboard Charitable Trust. About 9 years ago, Noretta and John asked me, what would you say if we started a new branch of the Trust to support historical performers? Well, they knew me very well, because apart from being a pianist and the artist of the Trust, I was very passionate about finding out what one could learn from playing music on the instruments that it was written for. And so we started new collaborations with the help of our indispensable Sarah Biggs, our manager, and now also Richard. We started to establish collaborations with Fenton House, Handel House, Cobb Collections in Surrey, Finchcock's Collections, Royal Academy of Music Museum, Royal College of Music Museum, and of course St. Cecilia Hall in Edinburgh. And of course also the Faris Foundation, I should say, who has fantastic harpsichord. And this allowed us to open a new path for pianists to potentially specialize in playing Mozart on a Viennese fortepiano rather than this magnificent beast. And it also chimed with the new interest of the public and the concert halls of including concerts with somebody playing Chopin on a French playel rather than this magnificent beast, and really hearing the sounds that inspired the great composers. Among our wonderful artists, we had such gems as Jean Rondeau, who performed the first performance of his Goldberg variations at Hutchins Park before his award-winning recording. Catalina Vicens, whom we mentioned just today, she performed at Farah's Shoe Factory. She is now herself an artistic director and I forgot the word. curator of the Bologna Instrumental Museum, the biggest instrumental museum in the world, on top of course, her busy performing career. And tomorrow will be the start of our latest historical performers UK tour at Hutchlands. He will be playing a program of Bach's sons and his pupils on an array of amazing instruments. It will be a Saxon clavichord, the only one available in Britain, a Saxon harpsichord, which sounds like nothing you have heard before from the French or the Italian or English indeed harpsichords, and a Viennese fortepiano. A collection of instruments that you really cannot come by anywhere else. So about all of this and every detail of the Keyboard Charitable Trust to date, you will find in this little red book. Yes. And I invite Christopher to tell us a little bit more about its coming to life.
Yes, of course I will. Thank you, Elena. Yeah, the gift. Firstly, I've been asked to thank very generous sponsors of this book, a book that John dreamt of writing for this 30th anniversary of the Keyboard Trust. The sponsors are Roger and Nancy Rosen, who unfortunately could not be with us tonight, and for Elena de Castro and Paolo Gaia, who are here with us tonight. Yes. Thanks to their generosity that we now have this little red book, which says the gift of music. It's a gift of life. Noretta and John have given life to so many young pianists, a moment of crisis in their life. When they finish their studies, what do I do next? Well, John and Noretta have filled that answer by giving them concert opportunities through their friendships throughout the world. And this, it says 30 years activity. I remember Noretta and John, they came to my theatre, I live in Rome, in the centre of Rome, and they brought Leslie Howard to come and play in Rome. This was 37 years ago. And I know it's 37 years ago because John, it was his 60th birthday, he just retired, and he come and brought Leslie, who was Noretta's favourite pupil at that time, she was her favourite student, let's say, and he came and played in my theatre. I remember it very well. I remember very well the bottles of wine that we drank after to celebrate. All works of Bach, they're all transcriptions of Bach, some known, some very unknown, and all beautifully played, as we heard Leslie play today. Nothing has changed. I knew Leslie from when we were in Siena together with Guido Agosti, one of the great musicians of our time, and Leslie was a blonde, blue-eyed, athletic Australian who had come to study with pupil of Busoni. He wanted to discover the origins, even then, of Liszt. And Agosti and his wife, they adored Leslie. I remember that. I remember thinking how jealous I was of this thing. But the thing is, the actual book, John says, written by John Leach with Christopher Axworthy. Well, I would put that to one side. John has been the drive behind this. He's asked me to write one or two things about what do we look for in pianists, what are we looking for, how do we choose them. You'll find that in this book. You'll find also the origins of the Keyboard Trust, because John decided when Noretta's 60th birthday, her birthday present would be to establish a Keyboard Trust, something that would last much longer than them. So it would carry on forever, and it would help young musicians. And this was John's birthday present to Noretta. And so this was born, this book, The Keyboard Trust, born by the great love of Noretta and John, which is an example to us all. Not only love for each other, but love for music and love for helping young musicians. And to see John today closing his eyes and listening so intently to the music. Noretta, who regularly has people come and play to her in her house, and she encourages them and helps them. And we now have concerts. We have tours of America, we have tours, thanks to Moritz von Bredow, we have tours in Germany, we have tours, a lot of concerts in Italy, strangely enough, and Cyprus, we have Gero here, who from the shoe factory in Cyprus, which is a wonderful example. He too has created something quite unique there. And we've met so many people via Noretta and John who have created something so unique. We don't talk about the beautiful things that happen in life. We open the newspaper, one's died, and this one has blown up, and this. We don't talk about the beauty in life. There are so many beautiful things, and as Maestro Pappano said, it's through music that we can reach that, because music carries on where words are not enough. And this, John has managed to put enough in words, but it is the music that speaks louder than this. And it's the music that, thanks to Noretta and John, will carry on for as long as we are. As long as music continues, the Keyboard Trust, I think, will be there. I know it will be there. While I'm here, it will certainly be there. The book is amazing. I can't believe that John actually finished it. He would ring us up, I want to know this, and I want to... No, I don't want to know that. I want to know this, and I want to know that. And we were so impatient about it, but John insisted, and the result is something really quite splendid. Splendid to look at as well. It's a beautiful object. And inside, it's not only beautiful to look at inside, but the words are so beautiful. And the way it's put together, and the way it answers so many questions, if you read it, it just describes so perfectly what John and Noretta have been doing for a lifetime. And so I highly recommend this book. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Christopher. I'd like to conclude another part of the evening. You'll have heard that the tentacles of the Keyboard Trust stretch in various directions across this country and any other country, perhaps except Antarctica, but that's because the penguins haven't quite got used to us yet. But everywhere else, the Keyboard Trust performs in some place or another. And one of the people who've ensured that that's happened will talk to us briefly about his experiences of managing Keyboard Trusts from London, but actually in Germany. Moritz, please.
But what is music? This question I asked myself last night, and I could not sleep for hours. Music stands between thought and appearance. As a dawning mediator, it stands between spirit and matter. It is related to both, and yet distant from both. Music is spirit that requires a measure of time, and it is matter that can go without space. Heinrich Heine, 1837. My very dearest Noretta, and my very dear John, Santonio, Geoffrey, ladies and gentlemen, standing here before you after 20 years of work for the Keyboard Trust in Germany moves me deeply, especially under recent events, the demise of Her Majesty and the situation in the world, which I think everybody who has been speaking here tonight has mentioned. But it moves me deeply because my thoughts are going back to when I first met you, Noretta and John, during a birthday party in New York. We were sitting across the table, and you were talking to me, and I was talking to you, and suddenly the work of the Keyboard Trust came up. And one very important partner of the Keyboard Trust, which you mentioned to me, and that was the reason why we came into cooperation, was Steinway. This is a Steinway piano produced in Hamburg, built by hand from more than 12,000 parts over 3 years. And I'm grateful, Maura and Wiebke, that you are here tonight from Steinway here in London, because Steinway has been a partner ever since the Keyboard Trust was built. So I asked Noretta and John, I live in Hamburg. Steinway has its cradle in Hamburg. Who's doing anything? And John said to me, nobody. We don't know anyone in Hamburg who could do it. This is how it started, and it will be a month from now that we've had our very first recital in Hamburg, where my Yifo played in the Steinway factory. And over the course of the next 17 years, because we didn't really have recitals after the pandemic started, I think I've been organizing recitals for about 35 young, wonderfully gifted pianists, some of whom I see right over there with greatest joy in my heart and gratitude. And we started at Steinway's in Hamburg, and in and around Hamburg, where I live, we have about 6 or 7 locations. But then we moved on to Berlin, where we have a wonderful, prestigious location, which is the representation of the city of Hamburg in the German capital, like a little embassy. And we have a wonderful cooperation with Bechstein in Frankfurt, thanks to Sibylle and Patrick Rabu, who unfortunately can't be here tonight, but they're sending their cordial wishes, and they send us our greetings and love for everyone. We moved on to Munich, also Steinway. We have a wonderful location in a small orangerie of a castle from the 18th century in Reda Wiedenbrück and other places. Some places, some corporations did not last forever, I must say. This happens when we had no people coming. I remember sometimes there was 1 or 2 people coming, and we always have to rely on the work of our partners. This is a great joy. And so to answer the question, what is music? I think we can consider Shakespeare's words, if music be the food of love, play on. This is what I would like to say, not only to our wonderful musicians over there, but to those who can't be here tonight. Play on. Whatever age you have, whatever work you have, play on. And this gives me the opportunity to pass on to you the very, very heartfelt greetings from our dear friend and supporter, Lady Annabel Weidenfeld and Menachem Pressler, who can't be here tonight. And I spoke this afternoon to our trustee, who took the place of the late Claudio Abbado 3 years after his demise, Yevgeny Kisin, who I spoke to in Prague. He sends his cordial wishes and wishes of success. And of course I spoke to Alfred Brendel, who could not come, also for health reasons, like Yevgeny Kisin, who would have been very happy to be here tonight. So I told him, you know what, Alfred, I'll take you with me in my heart, and you'll be here with us. Yeah. So all these are here with us. So I would love to raise a glass to friends and family, present and absent. And I think the word that Shakespeare has given us, if music be the food of love, play on. I think this is the essence. Christopher, you mentioned it so beautifully. It is the love that you, dearest John, and Noretta, my dear Noretta, that you have for each other and for all of us, and especially in abundance for the young musicians. And it is your generosity of love and thought and inspiration that keeps our foundation going. We are not a business. We are a private foundation based on enthusiasm and idealism, and this is what all the work which we are doing is about. And because your generosity is keeping the Keyboard Trust alive, and keeps the young musicians finding their ways, I'm asking everybody here to show your generosity. If music be the food of love, play on.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've been like a jack in the box tonight. Every time anyone stopped, I pop up and say something else. But I promise you, this is my farewell performance for this evening. It comes, however, with what is known in the trade as a spiel, which is not just a game, it's slightly more than that. As Moritz has alluded to, we are a charity. We have no grants from any government, any organisation, other than the goodwill of those people who know about us and who want to perpetuate the work that we do. So my spiel tonight is to say to everybody here, look, I won't be here in 30 years' time, because if I am, there'll be some kind of medical miracle before that happens. But nevertheless, if we can look forward 30 years, you can look forward 130 years, because the music that's played tonight will be played in 130 years' time. Go back 200 years, and the music that was then being played is still being played now. But the only way that's going to happen is through people putting their hands in their pockets, and we will take cash, provided it's not money laundered cash. We will take cheques, provided the account is in good standing, and we will take credit cards as well. I don't mind how it comes. I just want to be in a position to be able to say to everybody, here we are, here we've been, and here we are going. But I can only do that, not I, but the trust as a corporate body, which it isn't, but it's the concept. Because if music with the food of love, play on and let me have excess of it, is my motto too. So I ask you, all of you, to get in touch with Sarah or with Richard and say, here am I, this is what I would like to contribute to ensure the welfare and the future of this precious organisation that we all love, we all like, and which gives us an inordinate amount of pleasure, and somehow we have to make sure that that is going to continue. So I've said enough. I've been here enough. I'm very grateful to our patron, to the sponsors who've kept this organisation going for the last 30 years, and to the sponsors who are going to keep it going for the next 30 years. I've got a little note to say. This is not like Coco from the Mikado, but I've got a little note of most heartfelt congratulations to John and Loretta in the keyboard Trust for their 30 years of dedication to music and emerging artists. Their enthusiasm, discernment and generosity of spirit is an inspiration to all of us who hope to follow in their footsteps as the next generation of philanthropists. That's signed by Roger Rosen, the chairman of Roger Rosen Publishing Group, who has sponsored the Little Red Book, which takes me back to 1970 China, if I was even there, to read Mr. Mao's Little Red Book. But this is our Little Red Book, and this is a book that it has no political ramifications. It is merely shown what can be done by people who devote time, energy, yes, and money to it, but isn't it worth it? If you hear our alumni tonight, and you're going to hear them again and again, and the next generation that are coming through, we were fortunate to win, as Leslie said, the Weir Trust. Came from nowhere. I never heard of the Weir Trust at all. I'd never heard of Dr. Weir, but it appeared in some journal or other, and I thought, well, if it's not us who goes and applies for this money, who is? And I can think of nobody better than the Keyboard Trust, and we were able to persuade the trustees of his will that we were the only possible recipient of that generosity. And there are people who are benefiting from that, and hopefully people in the future will do likewise. He was very generous. He'd never heard of us. He'd never seen us. we'd never heard of him, but the contact is marvellous. And a lot of people will get a lot of pleasure out of the learning that these students have got and what they will then take to the public to entertain, inform and enlighten them. So this is the spiel. Please do what you can to enable us to fulfill the mission that we've set ourselves, that John and Loretta began, that we've taken over and cannot possibly do anything other than continue. We have to ensure that the next generation, it's always the job of the existing generation to ensure the next generation is well provided for, is looked after, is educated, and then they can fulfill the role that they need to fulfill in the world at large. So thank you very much everybody for coming. Thank you for all your sponsorship, all your generosity, your company. It's now drinking time again, I'm sure you'll be delighted to know, but at this point of time, please, please do help us. I'm not saying that we can't survive, we can't, but I am saying we need you. It's a heartfelt plea to those people who enjoy the music we've heard tonight and the millions of other composers that we haven't heard tonight, but who we know enlighten us and entertain us. So thank you very much for listening to me, popping up and down like this Jack in the Box. Thank you very much for coming. I hope you've enjoyed yourselves. Please go and have another drink. You've got exactly 31 minutes before you're thrown out. Thank you very much.